You think the center holds? It doesn't. You think everything depends on it. It doesn't. It looks stable. It looks fixed. It looks like everything moves toward it. It doesn't. The center is not a place. It is a temporary effect. This is Achronic, a long-form documentary series about power, geography, and time. Not events, not heroes, not chronology, structures that outlast empires. What appears as central is only where flows converge. Nothing begins there. Nothing is anchored there. It exists because movement passes through it. The moment movement shifts, the center dissolves. Centers are not built. They are accumulated. They emerge where roots intersect, where decisions compress, where visibility concentrates. But none of this is permanent. The center does not sustain itself. It must be constantly fed. It depends on continuity it does not control. It depends on movement it cannot stop. It depends on alignment it cannot guarantee. If the flow slows, it weakens. If the flow diverts, it fragments. If the flow disappears, it becomes irrelevant. Remove the flow, and the structure remains. But the center disappears. What remains is only space, occupied but no longer central. The illusion of stability comes from repetition, from patterns that persist long enough to appear fixed. But repetition is not permanence. It is delay. Every center depends on forces outside itself, forces it does not control, forces it cannot fully predict. It concentrates power, but it does not generate it. It organizes movement, but it does not create direction. It amplifies decisions, but it does not originate them. The center is always downstream. It is where consequences accumulate, not where causes begin. This is why centers feel dominant, because everything arrives there. But arrival is not control. What arrives can leave. What converges can disperse. What concentrates can fragment. The center cannot prevent this. It can only delay it. Delay is not stability. Delay is accumulated pressure. Over time, pressure builds at the edges, not inside the center, outside of it. The edges are not empty. They are latent. They hold unrealized paths, unformed intersections, potential that is not yet concentrated. When pressure exceeds capacity, the system does not reinforce the center. It bypasses it. New paths form, new intersections emerge, new points of convergence appear, not as extensions, as replacements. The system does not expand outward, it recenters. What was once peripheral becomes central. What was once central becomes residue. This is not collapse. It is relocation. The center never moves, because it never existed as a fixed location. It is always wherever flow becomes unavoidable, and flow is never permanent. It shifts, it adapts, it bypasses, it avoids friction, it seeks efficiency, it reorganizes itself without permission. Every system eventually creates conditions the center cannot absorb. Too much pressure, too much distance, too much friction, too much dependency on stability that cannot be sustained. And when that happens, the system does not break. It redistributes, silently, gradually, without announcement. The center fades, not through destruction, but through irrelevance. It remains visible, but no longer necessary. It remains occupied, but no longer decisive. It remains recognized, but no longer unavoidable. This is where perception fails, because the center still looks like the center, but it no longer functions as one. This is where systems shift unnoticed, not when structures disappear, but when they stop mattering. This is why control feels stable until it doesn't, not because it weakens suddenly, but because it was never anchored. It was only aligned with a pattern that no longer exists. The center is not lost. It is abandoned, not intentionally, but structurally. As flow redirects, attention follows. As attention shifts, importance dissolves. The system continues, without interruption, without memory, without attachment. No center is remembered. No center is restored, only replaced. What you thought was permanent was only aligned. What you thought was central was only temporary. What you thought would remain was already moving. The system does not ask permission to change. It does not signal transition. It does not announce displacement. It simply reorganizes. And what was once unavoidable becomes optional. What was once necessary becomes bypassed. What was once central becomes background. The structure remains visible, but no longer determines outcomes. Presence is not control. Visibility is not dominance. Recognition is not power. The center can exist without influence. It can persist without consequence. It can remain without relevance. This is how systems evolve, not by destroying what exists, but by routing around it. The center is not removed, it is ignored. Flow finds a more efficient path, and once it does not return. The system does not revert. It does not restore previous centers. It continues forward, leaving structures behind. This creates the illusion of decline. But nothing has declined, only shifted. The center did not weaken. It was left behind. And what replaces it will follow the same pattern. It will concentrate. It will stabilize. It will appear permanent. And then it will be bypassed. Again, and again, and again. No center escapes this cycle, because no center is fundamental. Only temporary alignments within a moving system. Even resistance cannot preserve it. Even force cannot anchor it. Even reinforcement cannot stabilize it indefinitely, because stability itself depends on conditions that do not last. You do not lose the center. You move past it. And once you do, it cannot hold you anymore. And once it cannot hold you, it was never holding anything at all.